Yo, yo, what is up? Everybody's in the stream. Hello to Free for All Sunday. Free for All Sunday. See how it sounds. Cool. We good. The futures are up, and it's wild. I think it's partially because the dollar's down. Actually, the dollar's popping back up again. Curious if the dollar's gonna break out this week. Let's see how gold is doing. Ooh, gold breaking down big boy. Interesting. Wonder why. It's really strange. Strange. Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. futures today. Gap up, but the dollar's also going up. Oh no. Save. Oh, see if anybody hops on tonight. Let's see if anybody hops on tonight. See what Mr. Tesla is doing. It's a pretty bullish move, actually. Ooh, Tesla might be breaking out. Might move $100 here. Looking like it wants to break back to the upside. Interesting. I have to peep this tomorrow. Tesla looking like it wants to break out. Let's see how things are looking here. Look at the weekly chart. Oh, it's gotta be the most ridiculous chart on the stock market. But look at that uptrend. That's crazy. What a hold of the uptrend. It's insane. Absolutely bonkers. Absolutely bonkers, mate. It's broken the downtrend. Back test the breakout. And that's a pretty picture. It's a pretty chart. That is a pretty chart. I mean, if it doesn't top out here, it's going higher, folks. Major support at the 100-day. It's pretty bullish. See where the 50-day is. I mean, that's pretty bullish. This is looking ripe for a move. That could move the markets higher too. Definitely push SPY higher. And Terrasante. Damn, it's crazy. Looks like it wants to break. This is one of the strongest charts I've seen on the market. Honestly. Come chat with me about stocks. Do, 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 do. This guy say 660. Nah, bro, you tripping, dog. I don't think this thing is breaking back down. Look on the weekly. I mean, everything here is telling me either more consolidation or breakout. Highly unlikely. Do, 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 do. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? Forgot to switch.
Days ago.
What game I'm playing? Oh no, I'm in stocks and bonds. We good. We good. Bullish charts, it's crazy. What a bullish chart. Hit the 50-day like S&P comedy. What are you doing, bro? Dude, oh, what up? Ari, what up? How you doing, man? I mean, it's a lot of earnings. Still, I think we still have some bigger cap names, but I think it's a lot of small cap, huh? Let me get my window up real quick because I forgot to get Chrome started. 1 second. Any names you looking at for this week? maybe Uber. I think the only negative on Uber, if I remember correctly, is didn't they just have someone, who was it? Goldman Sachs or someone trying to sell like $25 billion or something? I'll look it up real quick. Just saw they had somebody, some big, maybe Uber, yeah. Somebody. Someone said they were trying to sell hella shares. Let's see. Oh, SoftBank. Oh, DD and other losses. Interesting. There's only 1/3. 1/3 of its stake. Wow. It's a big. But there's some other news too. Yeah, I was thinking there may be will be some trickle effect. Yeah. There was somebody else too. Oh, Goldman Sachs reported on it. That's what it was. Gotcha. I mean, it's a lot of shares, but I guess if it gets bought up by the market, then let's look at their chart, see how they're looking. I haven't paid attention to it at all. See how their chart's looking. Oh yeah, some negativity off that news. I mean, I still think Uber's probably getting pretty beat up from the lack of travel still, you know? Like, I haven't used an Uber in a long time, but especially since COVID. Let's see how we're looking. I mean, it could be a little coming up on the 100-day, which is interesting, you know? So if it can hold 4190, but the only kind of bearish thing here is this big candle, because if it continues to break under this price, there's not really much holding it from just it crapping out. Like, we have the 100-day. Let's make a trend line there. What day is their earnings, Ari? Yeah, we have a support line right at the 100-day, which is interesting. But this is the only thing that concerns me. So if it doesn't hold this 100-day, then it's probably moving down pretty rapidly to this 36. You also have it break below this trend line recently, and that caused a lot of negative momentum. It's a risky one, technically speaking. We can see what they're. Oh, this is on the weekly chart. Let me go daily chart. That's what I'm gonna look at. Yeah, we kind of look at that big gapping in this area. That's a little concerning. We don't have a 200-day yet, and 50 days probably up there as well. Yeah. Wednesday after the close, I think. Yeah, the chart's not looking too hot. MACD tried to move positive, but got rejected and back heading negative momentum again. We're coming up on pretty big support here, as we saw on the weekly. We have the 100-day EMA. So if it can hold this 41, 42, but this is really nasty if it does break lower. This area scares me. It's a big gap up. If it breaks, it's gonna be a big gap down. One thing that scares me. What's lift? Guess this is it. Oh, lift's looking a little healthier. Probably that share selling that really pushed that negative momentum on Uber. Lyft definitely looks a lot healthier of a chart. But that could also mean that it just hasn't caught up to Uber yet in terms of performance. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have one or two that you'd rather bet on these two? Let me bring up earnings to see what the estimates are for it. Earnings. earnings date. We can get some estimates here. They're estimating negative 32 a share. Probably put on Uber. Lyft call. Lol. That's funny. I'm scared of playing earnings right now, man. It's like everything's beating earnings. Like I think this week some news came out that said that so far like 88% of companies have beat earnings, which is a ridiculous number. It's pretty insane that many companies have beat earnings. So a lot of companies making money, which in theory you think that would happen for these smaller cap or mid cap names. Even though I don't know if Uber would be considered a small cap or mid cap, they're pretty big at this point. But last quarter, I mean, they had 2.9 billion, and the economy has opened up pretty drastically over Q2. So, I mean, they could pretty easily make $1 billion more this quarter. That's not too unreasonable. What was their earnings per share last quarter? Oh, they had really healthy earnings last quarter in terms of earnings per share. Huh. I wonder why. That'd be something to investigate. Because even though they miss revenue, which I think if they miss revenue, that's not going to be a great sign for the stock. But they killed on earnings per share, which is making this company look a bit healthier. I mean, Q4, they had negative 40 cents a share. They reported plus 45 cents a share. That's pretty impressive quarter over quarter. Let's see, Lyft, what their expectations are. Negative 25 cents, 699 million revenue. So they had a better revenue quarter, but obviously they're a little smaller company, so not as great on earnings per share. But this looks like Lyft's having a little bit better momentum on revenue, at least. I mean, they're a smaller company, so they don't have to make up as much revenue, you know, that way speaking. Yeah, I think they could for sure make 100K more revenue this quarter. That's super doable. I don't know how they've been having to spend on advertising or anything. I'm not sure what they've been doing. That might be or like maybe paying drivers more or getting drivers to come back on the network, because I know that they've been talking about having a hard time getting people to come back to work. I think that's hit Uber and Lyft pretty drastically. You have people not wanting to come back and work. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, a lot of earnings have beat already this quarter, so that's probably quite positive for the rest of the companies, you know, coming in. But who knows? Yeah, man, no problem. But yeah, Uber chart looks really gross with that. With SoftBank sharing off of a bunch of shares, like, that's scary. Because if their earnings doesn't go well, this thing's gonna poop really quick. But if it doesn't poop out, if it breaks above that trend line, it could definitely soar back up to this $50 price range pretty quickly. I think if they beat earnings, they'll quickly go up like $7. I can't remember, Ari, were you here before? Were you here last week? I can't remember, your name looks familiar, but I don't remember. Sorry, I wasn't on last week, the week before. Oh, gotcha. For a bit. Cool. Well, I appreciate you stopping by again, man. It's a pretty slow Sunday. I don't know why it's a slow Sunday, because are you on mostly late nights? Yeah, I do a kind of a stream every Sunday night, kind of doing technical analysis and kind of just reviewing stocks with people who stop by. And then on Saturday, Me and my buddy who runs this stream with me, we do kind of like a live podcast is the best way to I would call it, where it's on Saturdays at 7 p.m. West Coast time, and we just talk about the stock market and what's going on and where we think it's headed and stuff like that. Or not just the stock market, but the economy as well. So we have a fun time doing that. We usually
Hello there. Thanks for stopping by the channel. My name is Dylan, and this is Chill Deal Trades.
Pretty regularly.
I make daily videos,
Stop by there.
both dissecting the markets as well as
Feel free
specific
to come. Yeah, we
companies,
have fun on,
so that you know what's going on.
we have fun on,
I'm really excited. I
Saturday
started this
nights.
YouTube channel a couple months ago, and
We just kinda
we've
it's a little
started
bit
on a
like
pretty
big
good
picture
trajectory.
thinking.
So if you haven't
We'll
yet
talk
hit the
about,
sub
what's
button
going
and
on
join
in
the squad.
economy,
I started my
how that
personal
might be
investing.
affecting the stock market or all the news that's happened lately, things that we're keeping our eye on. So we have a lot of fun on Saturday nights. So it's a little bit more lighthearted, where Sunday nights is just straight numbers. And then I have this YouTube channel. You can check it out if you want. I would say mostly daily videos on there, just covering different stocks and things like that. So feel free to subscribe there, and if you haven't here, follow the channel, the Twitch channel, so you know when we're on. But every Sunday night, feel free to always swoop by. Any other stocks you're interested in? BP? BP. I know oil's kind of come down a little bit. Right? Don't they usually do just mostly oil? I don't even know what BP does nowadays. I feel like their company's evolved since over the last 10 years quite a bit. I don't follow BP very closely. Let me see if they had earnings last week. Let's look at some first. Earnings. Let's see if they had earnings. August 3rd. Oh, they report this week too. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, they had a really bad miss last quarter. Why the heck did they miss by 46%? That's crazy. Do you own BP? Yeah, I'm looking at all this. Yeah, all the earnings. Yeah, I don't know why they missed so bad. That's pretty insane. So they only reported 34 revenue with 64 estimated. Oh, they've definitely downgraded their expectations this quarter for revenue. But they're expecting their profitability to be much higher. Probably. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, earnings scare me. We can look at the charts though. I mean, anything can happen on earnings. That's like the main, you never know with these, is anything can happen on earnings. But we can see what technically, if anything's looking juicy or not. It does look like they just broke above. Oh no, they tested the downtrend. Okay. Oh. Nothing too telling here. I mean, the only telling thing is they're just below their moving averages, but this is more of like a long-term type perspective, not necessarily short-term earnings play. But if they do for some reason break out on earnings, seems like this 25 range is going to be pretty difficult for the stock to get above, even if it does break out. So we have this, basically all these areas of resistance. So if it, hobbles around here till, when's the 3rd? Tuesday? If it hobbles around for a couple days and it breaks above this trend line, it could definitely go back to maybe this 25.50, off of a good earnings. because you do have a lot of resistance there. So, oh yeah, super resistance. That's going to be pretty hard to break above if they do move higher on earnings. Look at all that resistance. That's insane. So I doubt they get above that even on the strong earnings. It's kind of no man's land a little bit, honestly. Just kind of hopping around. Broke below that trend, like gap down. That's a nasty gap down. Gap down below that. Let's see if we got anything else here. I mean, if they do terrible on earnings, and we hit a little reversal for this, there's a bit of support around 22 on the downside. Pretty big support down here, as you can tell. Yeah. Unless this breaks out, honestly, we could probably have some ping-ponging in this 22 to 25 range for a while. Unless they choose a direction. You can kind of see on this chart back here, it pinged around for a while. So unless something really drastic happens, like they report killer earnings, there's a high probability that we're going to ping around for a while and just consolidate in this range. Unless something bad or really good happens. But it's an interesting play. About a $2, $1.50 upside, $2 downside, depending how you want to play that. But probably won't go out of that range. Probably pretty likely. Pretty likely. It stays there. See where the futures are at now. Futures are up pretty aggressively so far, so if the futures stay up overnight and they break all-time highs, we'll definitely have the market break out this week, which will probably be good for all stocks. You know, SPY moved up, QQQ moved up, so that could be a positive for all these stocks coming into this week if we continue to see that momentum push it upwards. Zeter's back. Hey Zeter, see you in the chat. You still here, man? Welcome back. I know you were in here yesterday. I'm distracted on stream because I'm watching the U.S.-Mexico Gold Cup final soccer game. U.S. is not looking good, though. What up, Z-Tire? Any stocks you looking at this week? Or any stocks you got questions on? Do live charting on Sundays. Oh, option SPY and trader. Nice. You got any plays this week for SPY or Qs? SPY's up like 0.5%, I think. Too much for specific securities. Yeah, it takes a lot of due diligence. I feel like it's much easier to technically trade the SPY and NASDAQ. I think that's a much easier. I went long on the weekend, so I'm happy tonight. Yeah, yeah, it's up like a 0.5% or something. It's interesting because I was looking at the dollar too. Because the dollar looks like it started going down in the futures, and then it started going up. and it's going down again. So it's interesting. A lot of stuff happened over this weekend that I thought was going to more negatively impact the stock market, but you think I would learn by now that the economy never impacts the stock market. At least that's what it seems like. But yeah, they did the infrastructure bill that they were trying to get passed. I don't know if they ended up even getting it passed. But I know they were talking about did like a special session or something to try to get the infrastructure bill passed. Let's look at it. But some really crazy things happened this weekend that I thought were going to have a negative impact on the market. But let's see what this is. Senator bill and rare Sunday session. Oh, that's why the markets are up. Because they have a session. They would have trying to get this thing passed. Senate unveiled 1.2 trillion 8-year infrastructure bill with rare Sunday session. That's crazy. They did a Saturday and a Sunday session to try to get this bill passed. You know what happens when they spend money? The markets go up. But you know what's really weird actually in contrast to that? I think I looked at gold, and typically we would see gold break up on spending. But gold broke down, I think, early into Sunday, or yeah, like Sunday futures. But now it looks like it's trying to go back up. I'm bull overall, so I always look for the solid bear case and bullishness. You seem more cautious, so I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, it's just so there's like some other so the market, in my opinion, really needed like more of like a 5 to 10% pullback, and we still haven't got it. And so on the bullish case, that says the market's crazy strong right now, but it just builds more long-term bearishness for me. Like when the market doesn't correct, it's just building up tension to eventually tear people's faces apart by losing a lot of money. And so I liked more than this back to the 50-day. Like, let me see if I can take something off here. Because when I was looking at the SPY and NASDAQ, I was seeing a lot of red flags. More on the NASDAQ compared to the SPY, technically speaking. But we still have this kind of hovering, trying to make up its mind on if it wants, what it wants to do here. We keep seeing the blue curl down, but then, it kind of just still bullish on the MACD perspective, but we're just continuing to see this divergence build, and it hasn't broke above that divergence yet. So if we get a crazy green week, we could definitely see this break above, and then that kind of it takes away the validation of divergence happening, where the stock market's going up and RSI is going down. But so far, it's been building up a pretty drastic divergence, basically since the beginning of last month, like for the whole month. And so I was like, when is this thing going to break? Like, it just keeps building more and more divergence for, in my opinion, more of like a 5 to 7% correction. It's just because it's been so long since we've tested something dramatic on the charts. I was thinking that we might go back to the 100-day on SPY, because if you look at the chart, we haven't tested the 100-day since last October. So it's basically been a year since we've had more than about a 5% drop in the market, 4 to 5%. Not 10 months or something like that. And so I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, there's just so much strength in the market right now, and it just keeps bouncing off this 50-day over and over and over, and we haven't touched the 100-day in a year. And so, I mean, as long as it keeps holding this 50-day, that's just showing so much bullishness on the market, and it's pretty ridiculous how bullish the market is right now. It's pretty insane. I keep getting surprised, but when you look, I'll bring up another chart. Um, but the main reason that I think stocks just keep having so much strength is just QE. QE is not going down. The Fed just keeps spending and spending and spending and spending, and this chart just keeps going higher and higher, which is absolutely bonkers. We actually had like a little bit. They actually pulled back a little bit here, it looks like. But like that chart is just ridiculous this year. And like everyone's like so curious, like, oh, why has the stock market gone up 18%? Here we go, man. Why has the stock rallied crazy? This is why. The Fed is buying so much of the market up. It's absolutely insane. And so, and they just keep spending more and more and printing more and more cash. And so that's just propelling the stock market higher and higher. You know, just from basically last year they printed and they had, what is that, 3 billion? Is this billion? I think it's billion. 300 billion. Is that 300 billion? I think 300 billion of QE, and then this year we've had about 1.5 billion. 100 billion? What is that number? In millions. I don't even know what number that is. It's a lot though. But they just keep spending, and as long as they keep spending, the market's going to go up, the housing market's going to go up, everything's just going to go up. But the market needs a healthy pullback because it's just building this, I believe, like this really negative tension. And eventually, like, I was hoping personally I was saying the end of July for like the last month, I thought there was going to be a pullback in the market. And we got this little COVID scare here. SPY to 445. What's up, Professor Snipes? I think I remember you popping in once before. But yeah, the futures are up. It definitely 445 was my max for the move higher. But if we do break that high, we could see a break of this divergence happening on the RSI, which could what's the word I'm looking for? Unvalidate, devalue, whatever that word is. This kind of trend happening technically. So I definitely agree. I think we could see 444. I had 444 actually as my top that I thought was going to happen late last week, but Amazon earnings kind of pulled the market down. I don't think anybody expected that. But yeah, there's just been so much QE that it just is propelling this market. But I think it's a problem that in the last year we haven't. Yeah, 445 this week. If we get up there, that's kind of where the top of this cylinder is showing, or this channel. Oh, I went super long into the weekend. I think you are pretty long as well. I'm always long. Let's go. I mean, as long as the government's printing money. But I definitely think the markets, I think unless we get a correction a little bit larger here, like a 5 to 7% correction, I personally think that the market is setting up for a 200-day test sometime later this year, which I think would be more devastating to the market because that's going to be a harder correction to make up. Like, say over the next 2 months, you know, everyone's saying how August and September are always negative, but say that's not the case, and we keep breaking up in this little cylinder here. Say we get to like 450, 475 something over the next couple months. This 200-day will probably come around 400 or so. I think we're going to have a really drastic fall, and it's just because the market hasn't been pulling back. And there's cycles and patterns that happen in the stock market, and when those break, then it starts building up tension for something really, really bad to happen in the market. And by the looks of it, it doesn't look like we're going to be breaking down, but you never know what happens in the next couple weeks. But based on the futures, it looks like it wants to break to all-time highs again. So we'll see. it's a very strange market to trade, because it's just not following the technicals, and when things don't follow technicals, it scares me to make an investment. But I know on, let's see what we got here. And we touched this twice, but it's just keeping so much bullish momentum. Even the Qs are, it's just staying. It's stayed in this channel. It's staying in this larger channel upwards, and we keep touching the top. We're not breaking below this center line of this channel, and when something holds above that center line, it's just showing a lot of bullishness. And we're seeing the same thing. I mean, you're just seeing RSI stay up above this, this 60 range. It's just staying up there. But we're still seeing a lot of, kind of like I mentioned with SPY, with the divergence. Like, we're seeing this really gnarly divergence, and we're even seeing it on the MACD a little bit as well. That the market's going higher, but the indices, which I'm using RSI and MACD here, are showing lower. So that's what divergence means. So it's showing a lot of divergence, but it keeps going higher and keeps going higher. I can buy a technical guide regarding a specific stock. But do you think the broader markets can move based on technicals? Yeah, I mean, everything. I personally believe everything moves off technicals. I think there's externalities that happen. So things that we don't see coming that always happen. Like earlier we were talking about Uber, right? Like nobody would have guessed that out of the blue SoftBank was going to sell a third of their position to Uber. That's like an external factor that definitely had a negative impact on the price action. But when we looked at the charts, we could also see like technicals were showing something similar, like that something negative was coming. I've done some videos on my channel about breaking down the technicals on the indices, some of what I'm talking about now. So there's always those factors we don't know. That's like we just talked about the Senate having a special Sunday session to try to pass the infrastructure bill. That special session that's happening is, in my opinion, the reason the futures are up. I think if they didn't have these special sessions over the weekend, then the indices would not be up in the futures right now. And you can see that because when you look at the dollar, when you look at gold, you're seeing the same factors happen. You're seeing the dollar is trying to break down because of the infrastructure bill. More spending makes a weaker dollar. But like, let me look back in the past on some other videos I've done. So like when I talk about this divergent stuff, like when we go, I did a video on this. Let me see where it was. I think it was here. Maybe it was on the Qs. I don't remember what I did on my video. Where was this? So like here's a good example. So like you're seeing this divergence happen on the RSI, but you're seeing the price go higher, a little bit, and then you finally see it break down off the divergence that's happening in the market. So these things happen again, and when we see RSI go over 70, that typically precedes a fall. If you look at the Qs, overbought, we saw a drop, overbought, we saw a drop. Didn't quite get overbought here, but pretty close. We saw a drop. We got pretty close again to overbought. We saw a drop. We saw the indices get almost overbought here. We saw a drop. And so I made a video, I think last week on my channel on the indices, and I was kind of showing for SPY the last time that RSI has been this high, we got either a 6% or a 12% or a 13% drop in the market. like we've only been this high on the RSI for the Qs, back at this point. But the market on this COVID scare only dropped, I think, 3.5%. And so when I'm not seeing the technicals line up with the price action that in theory should be happening due to what the technicals are showing me, that gets me a little worried about things. So I've seen for years personally the technicals always tell a story about where something could be headed, whether it's an individual security or the indexes. Because the indexes, when you think about it, the indexes are just a accumulation of all the stocks in the market. So when you're doing a technical analysis on the SPY, you're also, you're basically just doing a technical analysis of stocks because that's what it is. But yeah, I think it works personally. Good question though. I like that question. Hello everyone in the chat. I see Calculator here. I don't recognize your name. Welcome to the chat. You got any questions on stocks? Let me know. We'll do some fundamental or technical analysis on it. If anybody else has any questiones, we can cover some other things. But I want to look back at this while someone's coming up with a stock question. I want to go back to this, what's happening on with the Senate. Because I just saw this news about this Sunday session. The last update I had that there was a Saturday session. I didn't realize they're having another session today to try to get this bill passed. So 8 years. Let's see how close they say they are. In the coming days, okay, so they're gonna have a bunch of meetings this week, it looks like. Thought they were going into recess. Like they're gonna be back in October or something. I guess not. Or maybe I'm getting my different branches mixed up. By the end of the week, they're hoping to get it passed. Okay, there's going to be probably a lot of volatility again in the week with all this stuff going on. But if they get it passed, it will probably send stocks higher, most likely. Unless they try to front the market, buy the rumor, sell the news type deal. But we'll see. It's a lot of money, 1.2 trillion. But I'll go into some other news that was going on. I thought there's going to be more negativity in the market. So some pretty big things happened this week. I'll just keep shooting the shit till someone asks me a specific question. But a couple of really crazy things happened. So the first thing was the eviction. That's not how you spell it. So the eviction moratorium expired before they could vote on it, I'm pretty sure, which is pretty big deal. But it's kind of half and half because I think some people were not paying because they could, and then some people were paying because they couldn't. So it's a mix of those two numbers, or a mix of those two audiences. But this is something that's really, I think, major that happened. Because if I remember reading the news correctly, it said that they're not going to be able to vote on it again until October. No, wait, that's just expiring altogether. I'm thinking of something else. They didn't get this passed, yeah. So unless they somehow reenact it, which I guess could happen at any point, they could always just turn it back on. It's a funny word to use, turn it back on. So that was pretty big news that happened this weekend. And the second thing is the debt ceiling. And I thought this was going to have a bigger impact on the market, but these macro things seem like they never have an impact on the market. This is really interesting info that everyone should be paying attention to as well.
It always
back in
surprises me what we can do for
2019,
free with Canva presentations. Seeing
it
how
was
quickly our
19,
team
yeah,
turns their scribbles into a stunning presentation is
they
really
extended
impressive.
the debt ceiling.
Then I just add my thoughts and
They feel
share
like,
it on.
okay, we're not
Make
gonna deal
Canva
with it now, and it was
presentations for
expiring
free.
on Saturday, and they needed to pass it before the House went on
The
on
legal
recess.
limit on how much debt the U.S. government
And so
can
they weren't
owe
able to
was
pass it.
reimposed Sunday,
And so,
kicking off a high-stakes
unless
battle
something
over
changed
federal
this weekend that I
spending with
missed,
dire implications for global
they're going to have to
financial
wait
markets.
till
A
October to
two-year
vote
deal
again.
to suspend the debt ceiling
And
lapsed
so they're
at
going to be
midnight
having to
following
use
inaction
emergency
from
funds
Congress and
until
President
October
Biden to give the U.S. more
for all
borrowing
federal
authority.
or for all
The
spending.
Treasury Department will now begin taking what it refers
so that's
to
a
as,
pretty
quote,
big deal that they
extraordinary
couldn't get something
measures to
passed for
prevent the
this.
U.S. from defaulting on its debt. Those steps
So
are
this is
likely
something we're
to
gonna wanna
avert
keep
a
an eye on.
default until October or even
'Cause we
November
have to pay
before
down
Biden
debt.
will need to sign a
we have
bill
to-
to
we have to
raise
find
or
ways to pay
suspend
for
the
things.
limit again.
And I think, and this is kind of my own speculation.
Millions of
I don't
vulnerable
know if anyone's
Americans
listening
struggle to
anymore,
get
but
reliable transportation to their medical
We
appointments.
also have, I don't know if you heard the reverse repo market.
That's why I started MedHall.
There's a lot of red flags happening to me in the market. I've been doing a lot of
Citi
research
launched
on
the
all this
Impact
stuff
Fund to
happening,
invest in
going
both
on
women and entrepreneurs of color
scenes,
like me, so I
you
can
know, from
realize
like a
my vision and give
macroeconomic
everything I've got to
perspective.
my company and my community.
I got you.
For the love of people, for the love of community, for the
But these
love
things
of
can boil
progress.
up for
City.
months and years until something
Over the,
actually happens.
he's
so,
been going through,
it can be 2 years
reputational
before these things
attacks,
actually
attacks on
have an
his human
impact.
dignity, attacks on his freedom for the past 12
be a
years.
while,
And
that commercial.
Niels Melzer, the UN
thanks,
Special
man.
Rapporteur on Torture, found that he was being psychological tortured. So he's basically been crushed from the inside out. And it's taking its toll on
There's
him.
an ad playing.
I
That one. Let me just delete out of all these. Thanks for telling me. You got a little commercial. You're welcome, whatever that commercial was. But yeah, the reverse repo, if you've never heard what this is, so you have the repo market, which basically means that okay, I'm not going to go this deep. Okay, so I'm just going to break down the reverse repo market. So the reverse repo market is when banks give the Fed money in exchange for a note. And through that note, they make a really small percentage point of interest. And this has been exploding basically since April. And so I personally believe that this has been exploding because the Fed is trying to find ways to pay for the debt because they had a feeling that that the debt ceiling thing wasn't going to get passed to extend it or raise the debt ceiling. And so I think they've been getting cash from banks to help pay for things. But that's just a lot of speculation. I don't really know if that's what's going on, but this is it's just a crazy stat. This is something we've never seen before in terms of volume. Banks are giving the Fed tons of money for a little bit of interest. And it's because banks are strapped with cash right now. They have a lot of free cash. So there's just a lot of strange things happening on the back end from a macro perspective that eventually are going to impact the markets. But as I said before, as long as the Fed is spending, I don't remember what the numbers were. QE chart. I don't know what. Until they stop spending or they cut spending, the markets have a very high probability of continue going up. You know, there might be little pullbacks here or there. You know, we always see little pullbacks in the market, but until we see an actual taper happen, which if you're listening to the Fed this week, they said that tapering is not even a conversation yet until they reach full employment, which I think they say we're about 1.5% away from full employment compared to the Fed, that they're not going to talk about tapering and they're not going to raise interest rates until they taper. And so that could be still a while away. So this is a very bullish case for the stock market, I would say, in the short to intermediate term, but
long term, we're going to have a really bad bullet to bite eventually at some point, because what are you going to do? How you have a lot of debt that you can't pay for. You're going to have to tape. You're going to have to raise interest rates. And that's going to have a really negative impact on the market at some point. But that could be years from now. So we'll see. But that's my tangent on macroeconomics. I hope you all learned something. I should call it Macroeconomics Sunday. This feels like a better name based on what I've been talking about. Anybody else got any stock questions? We haven't had a whole lot of questions this evening. If not, I'm probably going to hop off for about an hour. Let me know if you do. Not sure you're familiar with modern monetary theory. The main thesis of this government is not a household or business that will not run out of money. Yeah, they can print as much money as they want. And that's why the QE's scaling up, because they can print as much money as they want. So it's not about running out of money. It's about having to adjust things to make sure that the economy doesn't get to an unhealthy place. So in the theory of the Fed, the market still needs work. And so that means that they're going to keep interest rates as low as possible. And so the Fed is loading money. They're buying lots of bonds to keep interest rates at zero. And keeping interest rates at zero means people borrow more money. It means high growth companies can finance debt easier. But it crumbles at some point because the spending impacts the private sector. Because the Fed is making decisions to help increase the success of the private market. But at some point, the Fed is going to have to make adjustments, as in terms of tapering or having to increase interest rates for a time period. And when that happens, that's going to have a negative impact on a large portion of the stock market. As we know, the companies that benefit most from high spending and low interest rates are tech, specifically, and high inflation, or tech and low interest rate, in a low interest rate environment. And so the main thing is, while inflation is not going up, they can continue printing. The question here is, does inflation have a delay? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit yesterday. I think you hung out a little bit. We were talking about kind of some of the supply things happening. I agree. I mean, it's definitely inflation's a hard thing to read. And the CPI and inflation numbers don't really tell you, if it doesn't really give you a true indicator on what's actually happening. Because there's different ways to offset inflation. You know, like one that's happening right now is a lot of these big brands are, and this always happens when things get more expensive and there's supply chain issues, is they make their products smaller at the same price. And so those aren't things that are attributed to inflation, but those are things that is a form of inflation. And so that's making a desk 2 inches shorter, or that's making this desk out of this material instead of that material to make the price the same but a lower quality. Like, there's lots of things that aren't imputed into inflation, in my opinion. Yeah, it's true. I don't know. I don't think inflation. I don't think we're gonna have like hyperinflation, things like that. In my personal opinion, I don't know what you think, Zeter, but I think that's pretty unlikely. I've been saying since I think we started talking about inflation back in February on our Saturday streams, or might have been March. And then back in March, I was like, we'll probably hit somewhere between 6 and 10% inflation, or CPI number, Consumer Price Index. and we're getting close to 6%. I don't know how much higher we're going to go above 6%. I think we're getting, personally, like, I think we're getting to, I would say, the worst peak of inflation. We're still seeing a lot of supply chain issues. And like if we talked about this last night, so this is kind of fresh on my brain, but we saw the GDP growth come in at 6.5% compared to 8.5%. And so we were under the expectations, and I think that was part of the supply chain issues that were happening. So all the supply chain issues made consumers had a lot of money to spend, but they didn't necessarily have anything to spend their money on. And then the economy reopened, so money shifted from goods to services. People started eating out again. People started going out, things like that. And it transitioned away from e-commerce and buying goods. So yeah, I think supply chain issues definitely hurt the GDP growth. But I don't know. I think we're at a place where there's a lot of unknowns. You know, so it's really hard to know what's going to happen here. You can never really know. But the Fed thinks they have, inflation under control. They keep saying they do. It was funny, Powell, if you listen to him talking this week, he was saying, he's kind of just kept saying that inflation is transitory. And then this week he talked about how he thinks transitory doesn't mean it's going away. How transitory in his book means that it's just not going to get worse. So he's saying that it's going to stick around, but it's not going to get really bad. So he's kind of changed his tone on what transitory means, which is not the definition of transitory. But so we'll see. I don't know. But I think we're somewhere in. I think we're going to see inflation stick around for a while. There's nothing telling us that it's going away anytime soon with all the supply chain issues. We talked about it yesterday with the docks being loaded up with boats just sitting around for months waiting. And so we're just seeing there's still a lot of issues that need to get sorted out. So we'll see. I don't know. Only time will tell. Let's look at the futures again, see how it's looking. Futures. Oh yeah, futures moving up a little higher again. That's crazy. It must be this infrastructure news. I don't know what's pushing the markets higher. I guess we kind of had like a bull flag happening on Friday on the hourly chart, but I don't know if that would have given it that much bullish momentum. Look at the SPY we do see on the hourly chart. What's going on here? Where's my chart at? What chart did I have open? Interesting stuff. Okay, y'all, if no more questions or any more topics y'all want to talk about, my voice just cracked. That was pretty funny. Like, yeah, it's so weird that the market broke higher because there's just so much, like, not positive things happening on the chart. Very interesting. I mean, overall, it's positive, but in the short term, it doesn't look positive. Very interesting. But that's all I have tonight, guys. Thanks for y'all who stopped by. Talked about some random stuff, more macroeconomic stuff than usual. But I had a fun time. So, like I said before, we stream every Saturday. So if you haven't popped by on Saturdays, We game for like an hour from 7 to 8 West Coast time, and then at 8 we start our kind of like 1 hour live podcast where we talk about some topics and talk with you guys about everything going on. And then Sunday nights I do this. And then on my YouTube channel I do daily videos, so feel free to come by there as well. Do some videos about stocks in the market. But thanks guys, I appreciate you coming by. If you haven't followed us yet, please go ahead and hit that follow button. Oh, I didn't even see that. Thanks, Dang. Or is that Angel? I'll just call you Angel. Thanks, Angel, for the follow. Didn't even see your name there. What's up, Jake? Just stopping by. Yeah, no problem. It's nice to have you by, man. Thanks for the follow the other day. Appreciate it. If you got an Amazon Prime account, you can give us a sub as well if you'd like. Help grow the community. But appreciate it, guys. Hope you guys have a very successful trading week. Hope you make lots of money.